Women Affairs, Imaan Sulaiman-Ibrahim. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning.
And let me probably run you straight into this conversation. Now, gender equality has been a national policy for years. Yet, progress remains slow, and it has been also corroborated by most of the guests here in the studio and beyond. So from a policy perspective, what key interventions are making the most impact, and where are we lacking?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me and use the opportunity to wish everyone, all of you, a happy International Women's Day, Women's Month. And I'd like to also, commend the energy in the room, because I heard all the conversation going on. Talking about policies to address, an existing inequality. We have the gender policy. We're going to work on it. But if you look at it, I must commend the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Already, it has demonstrated, that political way when it comes to inclusivity. You can see that we have a number of women holding very strategic positions when it comes to appointive positions. And in the areas of the elective positions, we have to start from the party structures. We have to begin to see women in administrative roles, and that's what we're advocating for. If you look around our strategic action plan for the next 3 years, 2025 to 2028, that is one of the core activities that would happen. You see us, sensitize and work with political parties to see that they have about 35% of the administrative roles that are women, so that we begin to see even women around the party structures, because that would breathe. These women can transit and become contestants or aspirants for positions, because in the place whereby you go and all the directors of admin, the directors of operations in the party are men, so women wouldn't come there. So that's the starting point. And we'll also put in mentoring structures within our strategic action plan to see that we're mentoring women and girls, because if you want to play and win, you must be able to know the rules. So mentoring is going to be one of the core activities that we do to ensure that women are not only interested, but they're ready to participate.
Now, mentoring,
yes,
that's the key.
And then lastly, very importantly, we're going to also be able to sensitize across, society, so that we recognize the importance of having that inclusivity. That is important. That is very important that we have that balance when it comes to problem solving, providing solutions, because women are mentoring differently. And even children right now are advocating to be on the table. So it's very important that we understand that it's not a competition. We're not trying to kind of, dominate, but it's just that it's important that we have different perspectives when it comes to addressing problems and national.
You don't have to say, give me. They move to get it. And then when you do the checks, you see that women have almost equal number, if not more, than the men. Women have more influence over the children, by the way. If you have a grown child who is going, of voting age, I can tell you for free that the mother is more likely to convince that child or that, individual than the father. And so why does it seem, Lady E, that we rely on give me, give me, give me, and once we get something, maybe it's an appointment, maybe it's this or that, we're just happy?
Let me go.
Okay, please do.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing this to fore. I must, state that, yes, we have systematic barriers, but we have to leave that space of entitlement. As women, we're so entitled. The men will fight you for anything like they would fight any man. That's natural instincts. As women, we must recognize ourselves as the majority in the country. First, your attitude will determine your altitude, so already we feel like victims. So we're waiting for people to do things for us. Whereas, if it's got to be, it's up to us as women. Like you've rightly mentioned, that women, we're leading in every sector. Everywhere I go, even when they do interviews for beneficiaries, you see that there's more women in the space. When you talk about micro and small businesses and nano businesses, women are leading. We talk about agriculture, women represent 70% of the smallholder farmers. And we kind of contribute 80% of the output in agriculture, despite the barrier when it comes to access to education, to financial education, access to finance, access to market. So these barriers do exist, and we still triumph. So now we have to go back to the table to see how can we galvanize? How can we work in a more coordinated manner? The gender space or the women's space is naturally abused. Why? Because the global lens is on only two things as of today: climate change and gender. So resources do go there, global resources. So people just want to do, and also when it comes to women, people forget that there's an authority that can upscale and upskill. So people do a lot in their own spaces. So women's activities are underreported. We're doing so much. In the this time next week, I'll be presenting our country statement on progress for the last 30 years since Beijing in New York. I'll be leading the delegation. But if you look at our report, I had to review it because the report was being done before I came into office because it underreported on our progress in the last 30 years. It underreported on our progress.
So are you saying we have made progress?
We've made progress. We've made significant progress. It's only in Nigeria that you see women leading in many sectors. We have over 10 MDs, female, that are MDs of banks in the banking sector. It's never happened in the previous 30 years, or in many countries it does not exist. We've had 2 Supreme Court judges. Chief Justices are women. So that means we've been able to rise in that sector.
And in governance?
In governance, we continue. Okay, in governance, in the last 2 heads of the Nigerian Immigration Services are women. It's never happened before. I stand before you as the one and the only police minister globally that is a female. The policing role is a male-dominated space. Nobody will see a woman to be able to create policies for police. But we've been able to even attain that. So you see that there's progress, but for us to be able to make significant progress, we have to work with concerted efforts.
Well, if you say we have
yes.
made progress in terms of women leading in different sectors, why has the issues, the challenges facing the everyday girl, violence against women and girls, is increasing? The numbers are increasing by the day. Why do we still have few women who have access to some of this, I mean, it looks like the women who have access to some of these opportunities, are still very few. Why
I recognize where you're coming from. But in recognizing our challenges, we don't underplay our achievements. I'm a believer of, if you thank God for where you are, He takes you to where you want to go. We've achieved. It doesn't mean that we are there already, but we're making good progress. So now we have to go back to the drawing table as a team to see what can we do with concerted effort to move forward. I've done over about 7 interviews for the International Women's Day. Why? Why can't we just do 1 interview? Yesterday I went over 4. That's why you see me, I'm harassed. I've been going from pillar to post, supporting people because they organize International Women's Program. Why can't we do 1 big program? Amplify our voices. Be in the same room. Be on the same page. So everybody is operating in clusters.
Okay. I hear you, Honorable Minister. And to be honest, after all she said, Yenre could pick hole in, what of in government? And I ask, why is it only in government that people say, give me, you have not given me this number, you have not given. If people could do it in other professional spheres, they didn't have to ask for it. They worked their way to the top. In banking, where she says you have up to 10, they worked their way to the top. I don't want to believe that they, said, give me, and then they got it. No, but the president will always say, power is not given, it's not served a la carte.
No, but
so, Lady E, do you have a different
in governance,
perspective
we have women. If you look at NEMA.
Right? Yeah, so, for example, now, let's understand that, first and foremost, we've lived in a country where the male have often dominated. The era you talked about, Madam Igbo, right? The Aba Riot women era. That was an era in Nigeria where women, funny enough, and I think this is where media narrative is very important. In that era, women had voices. They fought against the British Empire. You cannot impose on us. Now, that kind of mentoring should have continued consistently, where women understand that you have the voice, you have the capacity, and you can go out there to do it.
So who dropped the ball?
So that said, who dropped the ball? Nobody really dropped the ball as much as this conversation where we're now saying, focus so much about educating women and leaving the boys. In fact, right now, because of a policy I'm working on, I am saying this conversation about girl education, and no boy education, it stops today. You've got to raise the same generation of boys and girls at the same time. You cannot raise a girl to become very sophisticated, highly educated, emotionally intelligent, and then you leave the young man to be where he is. And then eventually when she wants to now advance where marriage it can be key to your success or failure, you now expose her to somebody who they are not at par. So we must close this gap real quick by ensuring that, one, we need to retrain our boys. And that goes back to women. Women often are those who are supposed to raise children well. But that does not mean we want to encourage absentee fathers. Many fathers also need reorientation. Many fathers do not know what it means to be a father in terms of fatherhood and parenthood. Fatherhood is not parenthood. Fatherhood means you are present in the child's life. Just like you keep saying, mothers are closer to their sons. That's motherhood. Fatherhood means you two must play that game. Parenting is where you are now involved in the direction of how a child should go and what you must do as a father within the home. Because your children will model after you. It is what you model, they will copy. We have raised a society where a father and a mother will buy a computer for a child to enter Yahoo. Now, that shift in our cultural psyche, when it comes to our cultural values, is where the fundamental problem lies. So we must go back and address our fundamental values. And like she rightly stated, I was going to say it before she did, but I'm happy she mentioned it. The media is not pushing out narrative about women's successes. We need to do more of that. If you open the newspaper of today, you will see all the stories. They are too male-centered. I bet you on it. Open all the newspapers in Nigeria today. Go online and see all the stories in Nigeria today. It is too male-centric. Everything about a man does is there. But if you compare the number of, because we actually did that research, if you compare the number of women's stories that are told, they're so few or tucked away somewhere. So that's part of the conversation. A national narrative where the media itself and the churches, the mosque, the traditionalists, they are all having a voice and a platform for women to excel. And most importantly, women must understand that nobody is entitled to anything in this life. The only thing you're entitled to is the air that you breathe. But you see every other thing. Food, you have to work for it. Clothes you wear, you have to work for it. Anything you have to do to survive, you have to work for it. Air is the only free thing we are all entitled to. And if that is the case, it means that going forward, women must take on the mantle themselves to mentor the next generation of girls. I do that a lot. We do a lot of mentoring of many women, internationally, outside Nigeria, and Nigeria is inclusive. You must let the ladies see you lead. Leadership is seen. It is imitated, it is absorbed, it is also integrated and incorporated. So if you don't lead well, the girls will imitate that leadership. So we want to let children go on social media today, see what is happening to the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas. You're seeing a generation where the kind of leading women are exposed to on social media is not what we want. But the question is, why are we also pushing it? Why are we also amplifying it? Why are we giving them attention? It is what you push out in public and everybody engages in it, that's when it becomes a problem. We have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. We have the Child's Right Act. Today, the law says that if you call any child a houseboy or a housegirl, you're in trouble. Yet people don't know that law. So the media needs to equip media literacy of the minds and the psyche of us as a people. We need to change our mindset.
All right.
We need to change our value system.
Well said, Lady Ejiro Mokoro. You know, you're talking about the media not, bringing out stories, or if you like, focusing on women in stories. Well, I would want to ask, are women willing to tell their stories in the first place?
Yes, women are.
Because, yes, because, I mean, the media would take what is out there. She just talked about being a former Minister of Police Affairs. Mm-hmm. How many stories about her we're reading at that time?
Okay.
How many stories? I mean, about
I
women.
read a lot.
Okay, well,
Exactly.
maybe that's not.
I read a lot.
Maybe that's her. All right, no, that's him. That's him. No, I'm trying to say something
Because
that we have women in sensitive positions. We have women that you have talked about in the banking sector. Are they willing to share their stories for the younger girl?
I agree with
Let
you.
me
Do you
come in.
understand?
Please,
To
let me
connect
come in.
with.
It's very important that I come in at this stage. Yes.
Right? In
You
Delta
know-
State, we
you
couldn't
know-
bring her
you
to
know-
come and speak on the BBC.
Yeah.
They
That's
invited
a-
me to say, bring this commissioner
Yeah.
to come and talk, because we wanted to amplify the education, the drive to education, where it's going, how it's going, and projections. And for the life of me, I did not know why this commissioner would not come on board. So where am I going to with this conversation? You see, when politics, right, chooses to appoint certain capacities over others, So if you decide that somebody to be a commissioner is based on the fact that this person has worked with us, this person has paid the dues, rather than get somebody who has the capacity both in public speaking, in ability to engage, in order to bring together stakeholders, and in order to also be very positioned in addressing and be sound in that space, you now make a compromise where that gap now begins to exist. We have too many of that, and in that sense, I agree with you. But we're not telling women, if you are given an opportunity to come and speak, no matter how short, please speak.
Okay.
The Honourable Minister wants to respond.
She wants to respond.
Okay, let me respond to what you've just said now. Everybody has their own style, leadership style. Nobody has monopoly of know-how or knowledge or skill, but you could always work on it. So that commissioner easily could have been mentored and encouraged to be able to, you know, like me, I'm a very shy person. I don't like to be on the camera. I like to work in the background. But knowing that my role entails that I showcase the work that I do. Everything I do is in the open. Every movement I make in this role and in my previous role have been in the open. That helps to build confidence. That helps people to know that even though you're not doing enough, but you're doing something. So it's work in progress. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about women's stories, it also has to do with role models. Because women are not out there. Women that are actually doing it are not out there. So our girls, our boys end up with the wrong role models. That would like, and that's why I agree with you totally that, you know, when we do stuff, we have to be out there. We have to work with the media houses. The media also have got to be more professional and more patriotic. Because sometimes, you know, I know that they run businesses, but sometimes it's all about relationships as well. So it's not just about the money. They have to know that they also have an obligation when it comes to national development. So they have to tell the stories as they are. And talking about telling stories, for the first time, one of our main side event in New York at the CSW would focus on telling women's stories. Because as the report for the Beijing Plus 30 is concerned, they said that Nigeria we've underachieved, and I don't agree. Talking about governance, because someone mentioned that, what about governance? If we've achieved in other sectors, we've achieved in governance. For the first time, we have a DG for NEMA who is a woman. For the first time, we have women that are heading very strategic and very sensitive positions in the satellite space. Women. There's a transition. For the first time, we have a woman who is heading the national, the investment, company for Nigeria, for the country, and even the export promotion council is a woman. We have a woman in NIMSI who took over from a man.
Fantastic.
So we do have women that are coming up. So let's not undertell our story. Let's recognize the progress that we have made, and then let's come together and recognize that there's an authority. No matter what individuals do in their private spaces, nobody can do it as government, because the primary role of government is welfare and well-being, and these policies are domiciled with government. So when we do, because I see people come to my office and say, oh, I've done X, Y, Z, and I said it's not reported. I don't have it in my reports. So if you do things, you do need to support the national interest. When you align with the government can upscale and upskill and amplify. When you do it on your own, thinking that, oh, I'm a savior, I'm a messiah, guess what? There's so much that you can do. Government has the resources to be able to add to what you're doing. So it's very important that we learn to, support government, because this is a government obligation. Yes. All these things we're talking about.
Yes.
But government can't do it alone.
Honourable Minister, from what you have said, it's clear that there are women who are leading.
Yeah.
But maybe, like we have mentioned in this room, the gap is that mentoring, having to pull up more women up. Yeah. Just so that in the next 5-10 years, we're talking about women, occupying the table, and then we're talking about spaces for men. Yeah. Such that, look at the women in banking, like you've mentioned, the women in all these agencies you have mentioned. Imagine them.
Let me talk about women in security. Security is for many years. You didn't even have women go to NTA. But now we have women going to NTA. And for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we have a Deputy Director General of the DSS that is a woman. That role did exist. Nobody ever assumed that role. But when they decided to, recommend to Mr. President, they recommended a woman in intelligence. Trust me, the women in this country are phenomenal. We have the capacity. We just have to stop seeing ourselves as victims.
Thank you.
And go back to the drawing board and plan how we can go forward with strength, addressing all the gaps. But we can do it. Yes, we can do it.
We have to go on break now.
Yes.
So that I thank you for staying with us. We've been discussing the International Women's Day, albeit a day earlier. And we've had a robust conversation so far. And to continue that, let me head to Benin, our Benin studio, where we have the Honorable Commissioner for Women Affairs. Honorable Commissioner, I just wanted to find out from you, social development and, goes hand in hand with gender equality. How is your ministry ensuring that women's empowerment programs lead to long-term benefits?
Thank you. In my ministry,
mental improvement and character development.
All right. Thank you very much, Lady E. Honorable Minister, where do we go from here? Are there programs and policies that Nigerians can expect from government to, fast-track gender equality?
When I assumed this role, the clear statement I made was, it's women o'clock. We've never had it this good as women in Nigeria, where Mr. President is a he for she. I think he's the number one he for she. How many men leave office and promote their wives to remain in leadership position for many years? Not many men. Even when they cannot hold the red barrel, they would rather be there. So Mr. President is he for she. The Senate President is he for she. The Speaker, they have all given me their word that they would support any gender bill that goes to the House. We have a Supreme Court judge that is a woman. We have a lot of he for she's that are speaking for us. The Deputy Speaker is leading when it comes to the gender bill. So I think that as women, we must align our efforts to ensure that this season counts for all of us. From the ministry side, we've come up, after doing a total scan of the environment, of our social sector, we've done a roadmap, the National Action Plan for 2025 to 2028, for 3 years. And this comes strongly from the economic empowerment, corner, whereby already we have the Nigerian for Women project. It's a $500 million project that has been run by federal government, subnationals, and the World Bank. Through this program, we're targeting to empower 4.5 million women. That would, in turn, affect many households and many numbers of people. The pilot stage with only 6 states was able to empower over about 500,000 women. We kind of invested $12 million into their hands, and they were able to save $4.8 million. We had small clusters of, affinity groups that were running their businesses. So times are gone whereby you decide... Is it by way
of grants, or what's the empowerment like?
Yes, there are grants, but they kind of save them and all that. So I'll come in and then speak about the program because it's not properly promoted, and people should know that, that something like that exists. But this is for grassroots women. So we form them into groups. So we don't decide what trade they do. In the past, when they do intervention, they give you keke pep, they give you sewing machine, or if you don't want to sew. So these are interest affinity groups that come together on their own, form those groups, and then we support them with funding. So amongst those groups, I think we have almost 50,000 affinity groups or thereabout. They've been able to save $4.2 million. So just kind of, convert that into Naira. So a lot is happening. And from the, for the formal sector women, we're going to have a revolving loan. We're already working on a plan to have a microfinance bank for women that would give them a single-digit interest loan so that they're able to access finance. Because as I speak to you today, the interest rate is almost about 30% or so. But when women can access a 4% or 5% interest loan, it's a revolving loan. That way they can be able to do. Women are credit-worthy, they're reliable, they're dependable, they pay back their loans. When you live here and you start to drive to my village, Kefi, you see a lot of women that own small businesses, and they will welcome the idea of having extra financing to be able to expand their businesses. And talking about the formal sector, you have a lot of women that have been on the business for 30 years. One of the ladies who does my dresses audio, she's been doing her business for 30 years. With an extra finance of about maybe 50, 100 million, or even $1 billion, she can be able to mentor other women and grow beyond where she is because she has already learned the art. So yes, economic empowerment is covered. We're going to do a lot around economic empowerment. We're also having partnerships with the private sector whereby, to enhance financial inclusion. And they're also contributing. When you talk about protection of women, we're also coming very strongly from the, angle of strengthening our legal instruments. You talk about the Child Rights Act. The Child Rights Act is 23 years old without review. These are pieces of legal instruments that should be reviewed after every 4 to 5 years. But for 23 years, the instrument that protects our children in Nigeria has not been reviewed. So I've set up a committee that is reviewing it already.
Fantastic plans, Honorable Minister. But I'm just thinking...
Don't cut me because I'm giving very good information.
Yes, you continue. Are you doing something about women who are already in leadership positions? I'm asking that because, I mean, just this administration, we've seen some women who have, some have termed it misused positions that they got, or if you like, not really represented women in the light that they should. Yeah. Are you doing something such that women who are in leadership position, you know, show some form of, if you like, excellence, you know, in holding such positions and not bring disrepute to the women?
You know what I tell women is that we have to be very careful. What a man will do once, it take you to do it 4 to 10 times before you'll be recognized. And what a man would do and would be ignored, a woman, when you do it, that's what they amplify. With every respect, let me talk about Desiani. How many Desianis do we have that are men? We know he talks about them. But whenever a woman is going somewhere, they talk about Desiani. So that's why we must ensure that we are at our best. And we do things thinking about our general goal as women. Because one thing a woman does would cause us a setback from where we're going. So we have to be extra careful. Because they're not used to seeing women in the space. So when a woman comes and she does something that is wrong, they kind of try to amplify it. But that shouldn't deter us. Because we kind of know what they're doing. Kind of know what they're doing. And the advice I give us women is for us to be able to work on ourselves. And that's why mentoring comes in. I have a mentoring caucus at every level, for young girls, for people my age, because mentoring is 2 ways. You know, while you learn, you also teach. So mentoring is key. And the women who must, you know, have that strive for knowledge. Just like I said at the opening of this program when I came, is if you know the rules, you can play the game. You cannot play the game and win if you don't know the rules. If you're going to the Senate, you know the rules of the Senate. If you want to be in governance, you know the rules of governance. If you find yourself in an office, you have to go and read the act. So whatever space you find yourself, you have to learn and keep learning. Because they said that leaders are readers. And school is never out for the pro. And one thing my late father always says is that, Imaan, you have to constantly learn across sectors, not just your space. Because once you know it, it gives you extra power. Nobody can break your head and take out what you know. Because that's your power.
All right, yes. Fantastic point and fine place to look at.
So I think it's very important to speak about protection because that's, you know, recently we've seen a lot of cases of GBV, SGBV.
It looks like we're going to have a special program where we'll have you come back.
Come back, no problem.
You know, and talk about some of all those programs and what,
yes.
you know,
But before I kind of close, on behalf of all the Nigerian women, first of all, while we celebrate the International Women's Day, International Women's Month, and yeah, because it's our 30 years of Beijing, I must thank all the stakeholders, particularly Mr. President, for his demonstration of political will and prioritization for all issues in our social sector, particularly women. For the first time, we've seen an increase in our domestic resources. It is unprecedented, and we must thank Mr. President, we must thank the National Assembly, we must thank the economic team. And secondly, I would like to wish all the women in Nigeria a happy International Women's Month.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Honorable Minister Imaan Sulaiman-Ibrahim, for your insights and for coming on the program. Like we already said, we're going to have you again, and of course it will be more detailed. You have time, you know, to speak on all your interventions and programs that you have planned. Thank you so much once again, Honorable Minister. I would also like to appreciate Dr. Olajumoke Adeniyi, Head of Operations, Hassan Foundation, and Gender Advocate. It was a pleasure having you again, and yes, in all your programs, we wish you the very best. Lady Ejiro Bukoro, author, Distortion, and Executive Director of Light Ray Media, continue to push the narrative, or if you like, change the narrative in your space. We do sincerely appreciate you. And of course, we do also want to appreciate Chief BC Daomi, who joined us in the course of the conversation. Looks like that's what time will permit us this Friday. International Women's Day is tomorrow. Take care of every woman. I'm Ian Ray John. Live it locked on the NTA.
And I am Victor, so have a great weekend and see you again on Monday.